I could use it next time.
Hello again, everyone. Thank you for coming back. Those of you who decided to hang out with us. We are going to go ahead and move into new business on the agenda. Okay. New business on the agenda. We're going to start with adoption of consent calendar for personnel. Board members, this is items A through H, and I will need a motion and a second for this conversation. May I have a Mrs. Clark and what please? Do I have, oh, and we have an addendum that I have not put anywhere. Oh, it's still up here. Sorry. Pardon me. And addendum T, U, and B. Thank you. Sorry about that. Now may I have a motion and a second. Mrs. Clark and Mr. Diller. Ooh, I'm warm. All right. Mrs. Crew, what you got for us? Anything to call out?
No, I don't have anything to call out in this particular section. It's just the typical resignation and employment, certified and classified that we have to use to vote upon this month.
All right. And with the sport items for item G, is this everything we needed? We're good now?
The only thing we need is that we have two volunteer folks that can just finish up their work, but we're not sure what they're going to do about. This is all of our hired folks.
Wonderful. All right, board members, questions for consent calendar personnel? I hear none. Mrs. Robinson?
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Diller?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Stafford?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes, thank you. Turning the page, moving into administrative. Board members, I'd like to make a motion to postpone item I on the agenda until the January 7th, 2025 board meeting. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Mrs. Clark as a second. Any conversation? No, we'll bring that back up then in January. Mrs. Robinson?
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Diller?
Yes.
And Mr. Stafford?
Johnson's been there, he's ready. All right. Board members, moving into consent calendar for financial. This is items J through R. Mrs. Robinson is going to present her 5-year forecast in your red folder for us first. You are up. Or blue.
Yeah.
Ours are red, theirs are blue. Whatever's available.
I first apologize, I have the sinus stuff going on, so I apologize, and I have to have the fan going because I'm burning up as well. So, on the left-hand side, I do the 5-year forecast that has the 3 years of actual data. The shorter version is in the report, it only has the 1 year of actual data. And then on the left side are the assumptions that I'm making for the 5-year forecast. But I just wanted to go through the report. Not a lot has changed since May.
You're going through the big guy.
Yep, going through the big report. And as you know, the forecast is prepared based on historical trends and current factors. And the information is then extrapolated into estimates for subsequent years. The forecast variables can and will change, and I will show a few things of proving that here in just a few minutes. But the intent is to provide the district's financial trends over time and to help make decisions. So the first page I wanted to look at is page 3.
Denise, I'm gonna grab this microphone for you if you don't. I know you mind. Don't roll your eyes at me. It'll make life a little easier. I'm hard of hearing. Thank you.
3, yes.
Yes, page 3? Page 3, little page 3. At the top it says forecast summary. So at the top of this page, it shows actual data for fiscal year '24. And then the rest of the graph is projected for '25 through '29. It shows our estimated revenues, expenses, and the blue line is the cash balance. And that line has never changed, it always has gone down every single year. In the middle of the page is kind of like just a snapshot of the forecast. And what I'll be doing is that you can see that we're deficit spending every year. And when I say that, of course, I mean that our revenues are lower than our expenses. But I say that based on the assumptions I'm making in the forecast. So if these assumptions do not come to fruition, the forecast changes. But based on the assumptions that I'm gonna speak about today, that's where we are. And then I'll explain about all the changes in revenue and expenses as I go through. The next page to look at is page 6. So page 6 shows our general property taxes. So our property tax revenue represents approximately 25.42% of our total revenue. We have reappraisals every 6 years, and then we have updates every 3 years. And that's the county auditor that does those. Our next reappraisal year is 2025. The new values then become effective January 1 of 26. So if there's an increase in property values, we will see an increase in revenue in regards to our inside millage, which is 5.8 mils. But we're also on the 20 mil floor, which means we see growth now that we've hit the 20 mil floor, because House Bill 920 says you have reduction factors until you hit that 20 mil floor. So if you look at our property tax revenue history, you'll see that we have been very stable because property tax values have stayed the same. But when we had the 2022 update, those values increased significantly and we were able to see some additional revenue because we are on the 20 mil floor. However, I say that, and then while I was doing my forecast, I might have it here. On November 15th, Springfield News-Sun put out an article, proposal to address property tax hikes would cost Ohio schools $336 million. So it's a fairly large article, and again, this was after I put the 5-year forecast together. So property taxes are volatile. There are so many bills right now sitting in the House and Senate to be voted on to change the way our property taxes are calculated due to these large increases in the past couple of years. And of course, treasurers and other administrators, we're like, this is not the norm. So we don't want to see those changes because we figure property taxes are gonna go back to the way they were, and they have been for the past 30 years. We don't see these huge trends continuing. So by changing the laws now, you're gonna affect school districts even more negatively. So anyway, that was just an article that came out after I put the 5-year forecast together.
Denise, I just want to be clear that when you do the forecast, even though all of that is currently in the state legislature, and they're having a great time until the end of the year, you can't use any of that knowledge in what you've put together already.
Correct.
Okay.
I use our history
Yep.
and what I see going forward.
And what's
values,
currently state
and what's
law.
in law.
Got it,
Yes,
thank
yes.
you.
But I have to think about that
Absolutely.
and let you know of what's coming up possibly, and I know Mrs. Crew does as well, she updates on all the new legislation going on. So the next page, the only other revenue item I wanted to touch on is page 9, and that is our state foundation. It's our state revenue, and that's approximately 54% of all of our revenue that we receive in the district. And this line is determined by the governor's budget, and it's a 2-year budget. It's for fiscal year 24, and then this current year, which is fiscal year 25, and it's called the Fair School Funding Plan. It's currently been implemented at 66.67%. That's how much has been funded so far. And then our base cost per pupil is approximately $8,150. And of that, the local share is $3,101, and the state share is $5,049. So that's the base cost as calculated by the state of Ohio. And of course, this number changes as our enrollment changes. The funding formula was introduced in the last budget cycle, and it also provides money to students who attend elsewhere. The money then goes to that school, it doesn't flow through the district anymore, so that's also a change with this fair school funding plan. I, in the forecast, have assumed that we're going to have a funding level that will mainly stay the same throughout the forecast. Doesn't change a lot, I know that we are losing enrollment, but I also just haven't changed it because so far we're down 19 students, I believe, this year. Not as significant as previous years. So anyway, that was what I put in the 5-year forecast. And then I met with Mrs. Crew today, and she got some additional information from BASA yesterday.
Yes, yesterday I attended the fall BASA, Buckeye Association of School Administrators fall update, and they were talking about the Fair Funding Act. And for the school years 25, 26, 26, 27, the whole idea with that is it's going to increase. The funding is going to increase from the 66% all the way up to 100% is the prediction. But we learned yesterday that in lame duck session, they are going to more than likely keep that steady at the 66% for the 25, 26, and 26, 27 school years. So they're not tiering it, the fair funding act like they initially, proposed. So as Denise works on her assumptions for her forecast, as she finishes it yesterday, that just, it makes a big difference in the amount of funding that we're going to receive as a district.
And I believe I had mentioned before, but we're no longer on the guarantee, when we've been on the guarantee in the past, so we were guaranteed a certain level of funding. And the reason we're not on the guarantee anymore is when our property values go up, our state funding goes down, so that took us off of the guarantee. So when we lose a student, we lose funding. The next page is page 10, that's our restricted grants. That's 9% of our total revenue, and this went along with the Fair School Funding Plan. We have restricted career tech funds, disadvantaged people impact aid, gifted funding, English language learners, and student wellness and success funds. All of those are restricted funds that we receive in the general fund. And being restricted, you can only use them for certain purposes, and we have to report how we've used all of those funds at the end of every fiscal year to the state. There was an increase in the restricted funds that I'm showing for fiscal year 25, and that is a result of becoming CEP eligible correctly. And so that is an additional 1.8 million in restricted economically disadvantaged or DPIA funding. That's an estimate, of course, but you receive that because you're considered now 100% economically disadvantaged to receive the CEP designation. However, before that, we were about 63% economically disadvantaged according to Ohio Department of Education. Well, normally with your CEP, what's happened in the past is you become 100% economically disadvantaged and you get that additional funding every year that you're on CEP. Well, there's a new legislation that they're discussing where you only get it the first year that you're eligible for CEP. Then you go back to your original percentage before you qualify for CEP, which for us was 63%. So you'll only see that, and I talked with 5-year forecast company, other treasurers, so I only put the increase in 2025 to be a little conservative because I'm afraid that if this does go through, I don't want to have an additional 1.8 million every year that we do not receive. So that's an assumption that I've made, but I did want you to know that. So that's why there's a huge increase in 2025, but not going forward.
And Denise, that income is in addition to the reimbursement for free breakfast and lunch, which sits in a totally different fund.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. So those are the only items I wanted to go over for revenue. Did anybody have any questions about those? Okay. So moving on to expenses. I know, Ms. Martin, you discussed that earlier, that salaries and benefits. where our expenses are. So if you turn to page 15, salaries represent about 52% of our expenditures right now. And of course, they're predicted to increase each year. The increase is a little bit more significant in the next 2 years because we had a 2% increase this year and a 1% for staff next year. And then I also added the cost of steps, that's in the forecast, as well as I put a 1% base increase for 26, 27, 28, and 29. So those are the assumptions that I've made for salaries going forward. Then next page is page 16 is our employee benefits. About approximately 25% of our total expenses. This includes retirement, workers' compensation, unemployment, all of our health insurance. We do contract with the EPC, like other school districts, to pool our funds to get lower costs for insurance. Our rate increase for our medical, beginning January 1st, is 7% over last year. It's 0% for dental and 0% for vision. And then I have forecasted an 11% moving forward through the forecast. Again, it depends on who you talk to as far as what the rates are gonna do. Treasurers, we do get together and discuss what we're doing with our 5-year forecast. And the ranges were from 9% to 15% for an increase moving forward. I've always used either 10 or 11, so I kept it at 11 moving forward. The next page is purchase services. This is about 16% of our total expenses. This is the amounts that we pay for personal services that are rendered by personnel who do not work here. We contract. It's also takes into account expenses for tuition that we pay to other districts for students who attend. And this moving forward, I forecasted about a 3% increase. However, for utilities expense is in this line item. Just for the utilities, I predicted approximately a 10% increase. Now, there's a lot of talk right now about utilities and our electric and gas and our different charges that our supply costs, our carrier costs, and the consensus is it's going up. At the EPC meeting the other day, they said 800%. And so,
They said what?
800%. So what they did was, it's called capacity charges. And so, actually, Daniel and I got on a webinar with someone from the electric company and had them break that down for us. And what was costing us approximately $1,000 is now gonna be costing us $13,000 in those capacity charges. Now, this doesn't go into effect until 2025,
Wow.
but that's where we're headed, and this isn't just schools.
January or school year?
Still in the school year 2025.
Thank you.
But this isn't just school districts, these are your homes,
Yep.
this is everything. And what it is, it has to do with the grid and how much demand we're putting on the grid for electricity, that they're charging us for that. So that was the only one I put in as 10%. And then really the other expenses, supplies, capital outlay, I forecasted a 3 to 5% increase for those going forward. Nothing new there. So my final thoughts, just on going through this, we are debt as a spending in fiscal year 25 and throughout the forecast, if all of my assumptions hold true. I am assuming that the board will place the renewal levies, either renewals or substitute, back on the ballot. And I'll show you that in just a second. And then if all the assumptions hold true, we will fall below 60 days cash in fiscal year 28. And just that we've cut and reduced so much in the past years, there's just not much more to cut that's not going to directly affect our students. I know I say that every time, but it's true. And if you look at the one page that has the 3 years of actual data,
Those of us with that.
if you look at the very bottom line, which is 15.010, that is that represents what I'm saying our fund balance is going to be at the end of those years in the general fund, based on all the assumptions that I just went over. However, that includes the levies passing. So if you move up to 10.010, that line shows you what our negative balance ends up becoming if we do not pass the renewals. So you can see that it's a lot different if we don't pass compared to if we do. But even if we do pass them when we're supposed to, by next year, or during the year next year, we're still in pretty good shape through 27, but then if we don't have any additional new money, we're basically gonna have to look at trying to cut what we're deficit spending. If we're deficit spending 3.3 million, that's what we need to be cut. Because what happens is when I file this with the Ohio Department of Education, they look at the bottom line numbers. And once we start getting close to not meeting our 60 days cash, or that we're going to a zero balance, Mrs. Crew and I will get a letter from the Ohio Department of Education workforce, and they will say, you are not looking financially stable, and they may put us, eventually in like a fiscal watch or fiscal caution, one of those. But that's where we head if all this holds true. So just keep that in mind, that can happen and will happen if all of this holds true. Again, the November forecast is also very volatile because it's so early in the year. A lot of things are gonna happen between now and the next forecast. So just keep that in mind as well.
Also, another thing that they talked about, that Denise and I talked about a little bit today, that Bassett spoke on, was that biennial budget that's gonna be coming next year. And the Bassett individuals to superintendents to prepare for a definite lower
Next year
budget.
we vote for a new governor, and then he puts in a new budget. I didn't think
Yes,
it
this
crosses.
is 25, but I believe it's how
He
the
does
law-
through 25.
Correct.
They'll work on one,
Yes.
and they'll wait for a new governor to come in January of 26.
Yes.
Daniel's shaking his head no at me.
I'm sorry, the state budget starts June or July 1. And it
Yes.
runs for 2 years.
Governor.
Mhm.
Interesting,
Mhm.
okay.
My point was, they just said to me, anticipate lower, a lower budget coming in.
Yeah. So a couple clarifying questions, because these things always come up, Mrs. Robinson. We have a cash balance right now, which is line 7.020.
Correct.
And that cash balance is, I believe you have mentioned, one of the highest that we've seen in the county, right?
Yes.
And that's due to the work that we've been doing over the past several years, and partly because of all the $8 million of ESSER funds we got in that we used
To supplement our general.
to supplement our general fund.
Yes.
But that doesn't account for the cost increases of everything across the board.
Right, with no additional
Over
revenue
time.
coming in or nothing major. Like I said, we are getting that 1.8 million estimate of economically disadvantaged, but that's all restricted money. That isn't money that you can just use for salaries, benefits,
Right.
and those types of things. You have to actually use them for what they,
It does account for some of our budget, right, for some of our
Right.
items,
yes.
but it's not, and God knows it's maybe only be 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
so, okay.
Yep.
Board members, what kind of questions you got on the 5-year forecast?
First of all, as always, Denise, great job on this. I know it takes a ton of work and a lot of effort, and it's really the district's guiding light to planning for the future. So thank you, as always. I did have a question, not so much on the 5-year forecast, but my understanding of the fair school plan. I'm sorry, let me go back to that. So I know the comment was said that it's only 60% funded.
Mhm.
So does that mean we are only getting 60% of what we're supposed to get?
Correct,
So we're
currently.
fully funded, we get,
Right, we're supposed to be fully funded over the next after this school year, the next 2 years. And that's what Basso was just telling the superintendent yesterday, is they don't think that's what's gonna actually happen.
if it did happen though, does that mean we'll then get that full $5,000 portion from the
Right,
state?
and
Or
that's-
does that mean that we get more than that $5,000 from the
I
state?
have it as we're fully funded
Okay,
in the 5-year, because this was what she just told me, like yesterday, or today, I can't remember which day it was, but it was this morning. So I show that we're going to be fully funded, because I had not heard anything about that, and even in my 5-year forecast meetings, no one had said, oh, we don't think it's gonna be fully funded, so I have that it moves from 66.67% to the 100%, but there's no huge increase going from 66% to 100%, because with our property values going up, our state funding decreases. So even at 100% funded, we could receive less funding than we do now.
gotcha. Thank you.
There's a lot happening in our state legislature right now for the next 6 weeks, just so everybody's on the same page. And Denise, Mrs. Robinson has just touched on just a handful of those things. So they are busy and have a lot in front of them, and we'll see how it all comes into play. So, Mrs. Robinson, anything else you want to share with us on the 5-year?
Not on the 5-year.
I appreciate it, thank you. Board members, we're good on the 5 years. Heads nodding, wonderful. We will go ahead and
Can I say
take.
something?
I'm
Can I
sorry,
just say
please.
something to Denise? I appreciate that you make it clear for people that are not numbers people, like me, and it's extremely clear, and I thank you very much for that.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. Now, we did a motion and a second already, correct? We did not? Okay, she stopped me. May I have a motion and a second to go ahead and cover these items?
So moved.
Mr. Mills, Mr. Stafford? Wonderful, and I will turn it back over to you.
Okay, I did want to go over one other thing.
Yes, please.
I'll just pass those down. I know we talked about social media earlier, and things that we saw on there and didn't see or should have seen. There was just one thing that I saw that really, I don't want to say made me upset, but what was stated was true, but taken in the wrong context. So that's why I'm passing this out. The comment was about that the district had a $3.8 million increase in revenue as reported in the Ohio State Financial Audit in 2023. And I'll stop right there, there's more, but, so yes, the financial audit for fiscal year 23 showed that we had actually 3.9, I believe, increase in revenue. It showed that. But the audit report, and on the next page, if you flip, the audit report is on a modified accrual basis of accounting. It is not cash accounting. Cash accounting is what I report to you and what I report on the 5-year forecast to the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. The audit, we have a financial audit every year, and there's 2 parts to that audit. There's the cash audit, which is what they actually audit these cash reports that I give to you every month. And there's the GAAP audit. The GAAP audit is the accrual accounting portion of the audit. So when you look at the audit report, you're not looking at our cash books. You're looking at accrual accounting. So it's our cash books plus how they account for these accruals. So an example I can give you is at June 30th, if you remember and you'll see it here in a little bit, all of our grant funds are negative at the end of a month. And I say, hey, we need to advance the money to cover that. Well, in the GAAP report, the audit report, whatever numbers you see, it could be like it's 138,000 for this month, but it's been in the millions before. They consider that revenue at the end of the year. They consider that as revenue, that's accrual accounting. So you can't look at the audit report, where it says 3.8 million or 3.9 million, and compare that to what we get in cash revenue. So I'm showing you on here, I just took the 5-year forecast from the Ohio Department of Education, not my actual data, but I pulled them from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce website. And I put on here where you can see the total revenue. So our revenue from 21 to 22 in the general fund, we lost 113,000. And then from 22 to 23, we did receive 1.5 million. However, the 1.5 million was in erroneous, economically disadvantaged funding that we received because we thought we qualified qualified for CEP, and that money had to be paid back. So we did receive in the general fund, if you just look at the cash, 1.5 million additional revenue from 22-23. However, we had to pay most of that back eventually that following year. And then when you look at the audit report includes all governmental funds. And I have another sheet behind here that tells you what governmental funds are. The 5-year forecast is the general fund, and the reason it's just the general fund is because that's our operating fund. It's the only fund that we use for the normal district operations. The audit report takes into account your general fund, your bond retirement fund, your capital projects fund, all your student activity fund, your athletic funds, your grant funds. It combines all of those, and that's accrual accounting for all governmental funds. So when you look at the numbers in the audit report, you're looking at for all of our cash accounts plus accruals, whereas the general fund is the only operating account that we actually have, and that's why the 5-year forecast is based on the general fund only. So I just wanted to make that clear, that yes, what they said about the 3.989 million was correct on an accrual basis, not on a cash report basis. And all these reports can be pulled from the Ohio Department of Education's website. All of the 5-year forecasts have to be filed. November and May, you can search any district at any time to see those numbers and compare them to the audit report. We're currently being audited on our fiscal year 24 numbers. The cash audit's almost done. They're getting ready to do the gap portion now. So, and you always board approve Ms. Carol Riggle to do the gap conversion, because you have to convert your cash books to a GAAP basis to be audited. So, again, just taking bits and pieces, I understand where it's easy to be misled or not fully understand. I just felt like I had to bring this up because I heard this numerous times, even by friends in the community, who just didn't understand. They read it and they said, well, you guys got $4 million last year. And I said, no, we really didn't. It was 1.5 and we paid the majority of that back. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention during the financial reports. And I do appreciate that you said earlier, Ms. Martin, about open door. Would rather get the correct information out there and explain. And if I don't know the answer, I will find the answer. Moving on, fund advances, again, those are all our grant funds. Amended estimated resources and appropriations. We received our carryover finally for our grants, so that's what most of that amended certificate is from. And then letter N is the SAA budget. So we currently have one SAA fund for bowling, and they want to split that out. They, meaning Mr. Holbrook. They want to split that out between girls and boys. So we currently have a bowling fund at 9937. So I created one that would be 9941, which would be girls. And then Mr. Holbrook, once we find out exactly how much money is in that account, he'll split that up between the boys and girls, I'm assuming evenly. But we have to wait for some purchase orders to be paid to get the final amount for that fund. And then donations,
We have a nice list of donations this month. One I want to just draw your attention to and then publicly thank the individual who owns Sunoco, who donated $4,000 to the local schools after seeing a newspaper, or an article rather, on television news that Park Shawnee had received cameras and put those on the exterior of the buses. To make it clear, because again, I agree social media sometimes isn't completely clear on everything. Tecumseh Local Schools does currently have everything that we need to have, according to the Ohio Department of Transportation. The Ohio Safety Center on the cameras in our buses. We have them on the interior along with a dash cam on those. What this money will do is to begin to allow us to purchase an exterior camera on the outside of the bus that will be able to be angled in such a way that we will be able to glean the license plate number and take that information and give it to our school resource officers, who will then file charges on the individual. And because we have that as a video, that individual can then be prosecuted and receive consequence for passing our buses that have flashing lights. And hopefully, first and foremost, our students will be more safe. And secondly, it will deter people because they'll start to hear that they're getting fined significantly and they're having some repercussions in court due to their choices. So kudos to that gentleman at Sunoco. He's been in the district. Yes, he's been in the district many years. He's helped the district financially, especially with athletes who couldn't pay to participate through the years. So again, a lot of not taking away from any of the other donations, but that was just a community member who saw a newscast and said he wanted to do something to make sure that Tecumseh students were as safe as the students in Clark Shawnee. So I think that was pretty awesome.
There's just one unpaid leave request, and then item Q, as you know, you have to have a purchase order before you spend money. Unfortunately, the high school actually has a 3-year contract with this Navigate 360, and a purchase order needs to be done each year. And this year, the purchase order wasn't done until November, but the invoice is October. So legally, I cannot pay that, so it has to come to the board for your approval. And I think we've had stragglers like this before, but that's why it's a 3-year contract. This isn't a normal practice otherwise. The impracticality of transportation, that's normally what Brian would go over, but these are just additional students, parents that we are going to pay to transport their own students, and then we'll pay them at the end of the school year for doing that, because it's impractical for the district to do so. And that's all.
Okay, that's all. That's a lot. That's $9,519 donated to our district in a month. So thank you to all of these folks. Board members, questions for Denise's financial reporting?
I just have one more of a clarification, so it's clearly understood. We've got a great public here right now, so it'd be nice for them to hear this. When it came to that $3.8 million that's in the auditor's report, and we're talking about that extra $3.8 million that the auditor says that we got because of the accrual, we cannot spend any grant money on anything outside of a grant. So it has to be spent on a very specific purpose. Or we have other funds outside of the general budget. We can take the money from the general fund and refund or transfer funds to a fund that is not doing so well, but we cannot take money from that fund and put it back in the general budget.
Correct.
So I want to clarify that, and
Yes.
you know, school finance is hard, so.
And if I remember, that was we have 70 grants,
It's actually 70 different funds.
70 different
But
funds.
there's over 15 grants. Last
With
year we had over 15.
restricted dollars.
Yes. But when I talked about student activity accounts, we have over 20 of those. That's restricted to only spend on those student activities. Just like we have 20 plus athletic funds. We have golf, bowling, football, baseball, wrestling. The money that's in those funds, I can't just move to the general fund and pay a bill. That's only to be used for athletics. So yes, we have a lot of money in those funds, but that's not money used to operate the district. So there's just that distinction.
Thank you. Anyone else? I hear none. Mrs. Robinson, the roll, please.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Mr. Stafford?
Yes.
Mr. Dillard?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes, thank you. We are moving on in our agenda, and we are to policy review, item S, for release time for religious instruction. You want to do anything on this? You want me to do it? You want me to do it? Board members, we have the opportunity now to decide what action we want to take on this policy in December. We have 3 options as they are. We can modify with the information that Mrs. Crew, does everybody have this folder?
Yes.
Yeah, everybody has the folder. Okay, in the folder is the modification that was brought to us last month that includes the only excused during lunch and recess, no more than 1 day a week, and go from there. So we can, this is for December, we're deciding now what we're going to do at a December meeting. So we can currently decide that we want to move forward in December with accepting these modifications. Option 2 is we can move forward with rescinding the entirety of the policy. And we have a new option after speaking with our legal counsel that we are able to suspend the policy until we know more. I mentioned earlier that our state legislature has a whole slate of things they're working on. And one of them, as I know Mrs. Crew has mentioned before, is this policy, changing it to a will, a must, they're changing
Shall.
one word. No, they're changing from may to a must.
Shall.
They're changing
Shall.
from
Shall.
the policy that they are looking at, the law that they are looking at is to change from a may to a must. If we choose to suspend at this time, that means that we do not have to take anything up. It gives us time to see what our state legislature is going to mandate, and then we can go from there. And at that time, we can decide to change the language in it if we'd like, after we know more of what they're doing and have more guidelines from the state. So, I need to get a feel from you as to what we want to do with this policy in December. And, go.
I'm option C.
Your option C for suspending it right now, suspending it in December, and waiting to see what we learn.
Same,
Okay.
suspension
Okay.
until we get more direction from the state.
Okay.
Okay.
I can make this motion, correct? So with that, right now on item S, we are going to move, hold on, I gotta read which one I'm reading. Too many things, people. I'm gonna make a motion and we need a second that we suspend board policy 5223, absences for religious instruction, at the next board meeting, and then we can bring it back in January, the following month, and decide from there what we want to do with it. I need a second to that motion, please.
Second.
You pick.
First one.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this policy right now? I would just like to remind us that this is an open forum item. This is not something that we would take into executive session. So if you want to have any of that conversation, now would be a time to do that. We can do it in December too. I mean, I'm not telling you how to do it now. I'm just saying that this is not something that we can talk about in executive.
I'd like to get some more direction from the state before I make any comments.
Okay.
For discussion. That's my personal opinion.
All right. Anybody else? Mrs. Robinson, I hear none. Will you go ahead and do a roll, please?
Ms. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Mills,
Yes.
Mr. Dillard,
Yes.
Ms. Clark,
Yes.
and Mr. Stafford.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving into planning and discussion and reports, I will turn it over to Mrs. Crew.
Thank you. First I'll ask Mrs. Wild, do you have any reports for the board this evening?
I'm gonna hold my comments till the next meeting. I do just wanna say one thing though. When we talk about the grant monies that come into the district, I will say this about the special ed grants. The special ed grant that we get in our district pays for about 1/3, a little less than 1/3 of the personnel that it takes to run our special ed program and operate our special ed program. So while it looks like a lot of money, and people say we can only spend that on the special ed program, and that's true, that's all you can spend that money on, but that funding that we get for special ed pays about 1/3 of that cost, and then 2/3 of that cost comes out of our general fund. So those funds, they look big, like Denise said, and they add to our bottom line, but special ed also costs that general fund as well.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Deputy Dillon, do you have anything to share? Any report to give us anything?
So, about, let's see.
Sure, that'd be fine to share here.
I'm one of the advisors in our Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I came up with an idea because Butler and Township have their Fields of Faith. So I'm planning the Fields of Faith on May 4th for our FCA kids to have a big worship on the football field. So we're just asking for donations if possible. I'm super excited the kids are excited. It gives them the chance, other than our Bible studies and et cetera, before school or after school, to have their opportunity to share their testimonies to the public. But we're just asking and hoping for some donations to help us out with that.
What day is that, please? Deputy Dillon?
It'll be a Sunday.
What Sunday?
It'll be on May 4th.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
What's your goal for fundraising, if you don't mind me asking? Do you have a goal of how much you're trying to raise?
I'm guessing the estimate, close to like 7,000.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
There was, again, who did a Field of Faith?
Vidmillion and Butler.
I know you've been working on that program after hours, so.
Yes.
Thank you. Anything else going on in the district you want to share?
No?
Okay, and I have just a brief report. I too want to start a little bit with the social media and the levy, and it's very truthful and accurate to say everyone worked diligently on that. And that's greatly appreciated. And so I really want to say in public that the personal attacks against Mr. Matt Mills were uncalled for and unnecessary. And I was appalled to be part of a community that permitted that on social media and wasn't taken down. And I'm sorry that happened to you, Mr. Mills,
It's
because
okay.
you stepped forward, and that's appreciated. Just to remind everyone, the law has changed a little bit. Legislation's come out. Superintendents have been sued for having too much direct involvement in trying to encourage people to pass levies utilizing district funds. And apparently, I work 24/7 according to the state. I'm never off, so I can't do the role that Matt stepped up to do. So I appreciate that. So I feel like what I usually would have gotten, you got the brunt of, and I'm sorry for that. And I just think they need to be ashamed of themselves, so. Okay, and there's that. I wanted to let you know too, we have a couple of things coming up on our district calendar. On December 6th, we have our senior citizen luncheon. We've had quite a few people RSVP for that. That's for individuals 60 and older.
Thanks for raising your hand.
Board members who aren't 60, you're welcome to come to lunch. You're welcome to attend that. Our Mrs. Lombard is working hard to prepare the students for singing. We have the choir, we have ROTC who posts colors, and just all kinds of things. We're looking for door prizes for that day. I also want to give a plug to the following day. Our marching band is still sponsoring the craft show. That's one of their big fundraisers, and that's 10 to 4 at Tecumseh Middle School.
All the spaces are sold out, it'll be a packed house.
So it should be a really good day. If anyone needs Christmas shopping done, that's a good time to come and do that. I personally want to give a shout out to everyone involved with our Veterans Day programs. They're phenomenal. I'm so proud of our district for all that they do to recognize and celebrate and honor our veterans, those who are still with us and those who aren't. So thank you, staff, students, people who helped our students get ready with the songs that they sang, which is very impactful. And then finally, I do want to talk about our renewal, which is factual, and I'm committed to talk about that. You have a packet in your mail folder. I just have some information there for you. The first is from your legal counsel, just shared information on your options. So in light of the time this evening and where we're at right now on the board, I'm just going to ask that you take a look at this. I want to briefly tell you what's in here. So what's in here are your options on what we can do as a district since the substitute levy, which is buying the 2 renewals, failed on November 5th. So we can pull those apart and put those back on as renewals. We can put them on at the same time, we can put them on separately, but you'll see there that when we can put those on, you'll see the timeline. Again, I'm not gonna go over all of this information, but there's a whole packet of information on what we can do, the timelines. It's a fact that we need to do something for Mrs. Robinson's 5-year forecast and where we're at with our bottom line and our cash carryover and our deficit spending. I wanted to propose that we have a work session to talk about this because if we do go with a renewal, you'll look on the first page here of the timeline, it looks like this. If we are gonna go on May 6, 2025, we have to file with the Board of Elections by February 5th. That means all of our ducks have to be in a row in January. So
I was gonna ask.
this is
Go
only,
ahead.
this is for the $2.1 million renewal. We only have May and November, so we've got to get it on by May so that we at least have 2 chances. Because frankly, I'm not sure the turnout, given the 60-40 defeat of the substitute. So I wanted to ask if Thursday, December 5th would work.
I cannot do the morning. I have a question. It says February 5th is the Board of Elections filing. There's back and forth in there, right?
Right,
So
you first pass a resolution that the attorney draws up based on what you vote to do. Then I have to take that resolution and take it to the county auditor's office.
Yep.
They have to come up with all the additional data that's required for you to do the second resolution. And then after you pass the second resolution, then all of that goes to the Board of Elections. So that'll all have to happen in January. Well, I guess you could pass something at the December meeting if it goes that quickly, but you'd have to have the attorney already have drawn that up. So I don't think you'll be able to vote on it at the December meeting. I think it's gonna have to wait until the,
January 7th, and we talked about having a work session as well in January. There
so
wasn't
it's the turnaround time of
That's
the
what it
auditor's
is.
office. That's what you just, I mean, they're very good at turning it around. It's just, I don't know, vacations and people in and out. I don't know anything about that, but, normally we get it within a week or 2 weeks back.
We could throw in a special meeting
Towards
if
the end.
needed, towards the end of December and January if we need.
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
But we could meet prior then
What
as
was
a
that
work
date
session.
listed? December?
Sue Ann just indicated that wouldn't work.
Oh,
Our next
sorry.
board.
I can do the evening. I can't do the 7 a.m.
I can do the evening of the 5th.
I'm good for the 5th.
I'll make it work.
I'm retired.
What was that?
I'm retired. I'm retired.
Anytime.
If we could do December 5 at 5:30? I've got to delete an appointment because I can't. Could we do a 5:30 on December 5th, everyone? Does that work? I'll buy pizza. If y'all want to come, just let me know. Okay, so that's 12/5 at 5:30.
I'll send an invite.
Thank you. Okay.
What else you got? None? I am done, thank you.
All right. So we're good with that. So if you'll just look through that information, that would be great.
Oh, I need that.
All right.
If none have any questions, please reach out to me.
Deal. Any questions for Mrs. Crew? Or for Deputy Dillon? Speak out. Okay.
I did want to mention.
Yes.
That the 5-year forecast will be on our website probably by the end of the week for anybody that wants to go out and look at everything that was presented. Everything that you received will be out there, the
Wonderful.
assumptions, the 5-year, the
Thank
actual
you.
packet.
For everybody out, my outside voice is working, Mrs. Robinson's is not. She just stated that the 5-year forecast will be loaded to our website by the end of the week. If you want to go out and get it, it includes all of the assumptions and the material that she just went over with us as well. So that will be out on our website. Excellent. Information items, we've kind of gone through in an extra board meeting. Our regular December meeting is the 10th. A little early, and as a reminder, all the fun of Christmas concerts is starting soon. That's very fun. Wonderful. Board members, Archer.
I'm gonna say something more about why Brian's not here.
You want to say something about, oh yeah. I'll leave you. Mrs. Clark, start us off.
Oh, Mr. Dixon is not here because he is on the TMS Washington DC trip. They left this morning, looked like a bunch of fun, and just as in the past, they have a ball. They have an absolute ball. Even if they think they're gonna be homesick, they don't have time for that. So they are so busy from morning to night, and they hit the ground running when they got there last night. So I've been corresponding with people, so they're having a ball. They're missing it. So.
What else you got?
I went to every Veterans Day program, and I was so excited. I'm, of course, with my job prior, I was always involved in the TMS one, and it's a different program than the littles. The littles are just precious, just precious. I was never able to do that, and I loved, actually, the high school program. We talked about folding the flag and how each fold, what it means, and I am a Air Force brat from my dad of 36 years and never knew what the folds meant, so that was really meaningful for me. So I enjoyed that a lot. So anyway, wonderful job for everybody that was involved. From the readings to the music to the turnout of people, and you just see how many. I just am so proud that we have a district that teaches children about being
Thank you.
celebrating their country.
Absolutely. Mr. Diller, you have anything for us?
Middle school librarian, Mrs. Bolster, received Librarian of the Month award.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought that was pretty nice.
Anything else? Mr. Stafford, what you got?
So I saw the buses this morning, they left this morning, right? For the trip. I went by the district about 6 a.m. this morning, and saw that, and I was thinking back, like, it's like the first time you let your child, it's like a little separation anxiety. If you remember that, let your child go, that you actually let them go without you for the first time. So it was, I'm thankful for the staff and admins that go to chaperone, and for Mrs. Leggett for putting that together. So she does a wonderful job. A thankless job on that. The basketball season starts next week. I'll be keeping everybody posted on that. We're very excited. A rough football season, so hoping for more wins and losses with the basketball program. And lastly, more on more serious, gonna choose my word very carefully on this. When I got on the board several years ago, the relationship, because I watched the negotiations drag on for a year or so to get the contract in place. And there was obviously for our newcomers, a fractured relationship a little bit with the teachers, or the TEA, the admin administration and the current board, me included. So I figured we had better try to start building a bridge to the TEA to be more transparent, which I think we are, and have that trust established back in the district with the TEA. And this past contract, we concluded it in record time, and I think it saved the district thousands of dollars in attorney fees, and was able to get people raises and get people moving faster into their payroll benefit. And I hope we can find a way to communicate the item I, armed staff, school, safety zone, without sacrificing, and I wrote this down, so our school safety policies, and still find a way to maintain that trust, because I do appreciate the concern, and we take all these decisions very, very, very seriously. And I hope in the coming months we can figure out a way to take the temperature in the room down on that issue. And I'll probably more than I should say, and that's all I probably will say. So that's my statement.
Thank you. Mr. Mills?
A lot of things to say tonight. I would like to second John's comments, not to piggyback off of them, but I agree with them. First off, I really appreciate the administration's support. I have thick skin though. That's one thing I had to learn relatively quickly. So have thick skin, you have to. With that comment, the board's going to be working very fast to figure out what we are going to do. I am ready to hit the ground running as soon as possible. The levy committee is going to start meeting again. Any of you people out in the community who want to get involved, who care about these schools, I challenge you to come out and get involved. We need the help. So more to come on that. I really enjoyed, I saw Mrs. Willardson at the New Carlisle Elementary School a couple weeks ago. She had about, how many did you have, 40?
I had, between both schools, 68 kids.
68 kids tried out for the high school musical at the elementary school level. So that was really fun to see. Happy to report my daughter got a part, so I will be present at all 3 musicals and giving a standing ovation to everyone. Looking forward to going out to watch the Christmas music, or the Christmas plays and the Christmas programs coming up. Always enjoyed that. I did go to Veterans Day at New Carlisle Elementary School. The kids did a great job. That was my first time I got to witness something like that, and I don't know how many other districts do that for our community, but that's just one of another steps where the district goes above and beyond and tries to, connect with the community. So with that, I think that's all I have.
All right. Thank you. I would just like to pause again and express my appreciation for the thoughtful comments earlier this evening regarding a couple items on our agenda. We usually don't have folks up front, I'm not gonna lie, but I was ready. But I appreciate the time and the thoughtfulness that went into all of that, so thank you. I also wanted to call our attention to, I keep talking about our state legislature. On the Dayton Daily News front page yesterday was an article that there's a bill they're looking at to increase base teacher salaries to $50,000 a year. Our base in our district is $39,081. It's a whole tiered system, happy to explain it to you. But just know that that's over $1,000 of an increase to the base if that passes through the state legislature. And we just had our 5-year forecast, so you're all with me. I wanted to call your attention to that. Also, board members, there's a great article about board governance in the OSBA magazine. If you haven't read it, I would encourage you to do so. That was a good one about how we do our jobs, the 5 of us sitting here working together and working with the community. I want to pause and also take the time to thank the gentleman from Sunoco, and his name just left me. It was
Dave.
close. Thank you, Dave, for that donation. What a thoughtful gift to the safety of our students, just because he saw something and wanted to make a difference. So I want to be able to make sure I call that out. And finally, I just want to wish everybody a happy holiday season coming up. Thanksgiving next week. If you like turkey, I hope you have a good one. And then all of the December stuff that we have coming up. I just read an article today that there are 21 different holidays, recognized holidays between Thanksgiving and January 1st. So as you go out into the world, if we don't see you again, I would like to wish you all a happy whatever you celebrate. And I hope that you enjoy it, and it fills your soul in many, many ways. So with that, believe it or not, we got another time for public comment. So if you have anything you'd like to tell us about, not related to the agenda this time, here comes Mrs. Tailgate.
Well,
I'm not gonna read my instructions, don't call us names, don't call anybody else names.
I didn't want to disappoint.
I want to call out Mrs. Fugate. I know that it was on our Facebook page as well. I want to call out Mrs. Fugate for her continued support for many years of our veterans in our Veterans Day programs at all of our schools. It is a kind gift of your time and energy and thoughtfulness that you support our veterans through our schools, and I am thankful.
Do my best.
You do a wonderful
And
job.
that's my first thing to talk about,
Wonderful.
is the enemy this year. I still don't know what to call it, because I came up with it on my own, but I handed out 275. Now, I know there were a couple of people, because one gentleman looked at me, he goes, "I got 2, is that okay?" I said, "Sir, I don't care. That's fine." But approximately 275 veterans between all of the schools, which I think is wonderful. It really is. Now, I have 25 or 30 left, I'm not sure which, something like that. And when I take the veterans' Christmas cards down from all the schools, what I have done for the past 3 years is I have taken approximately 20 cards with 20 of whatever I've made, and those go straight to the hospice unit at the Veterans Hospital. I wanted to make sure that those people had a little special. So the first year I did it was so funny, because the people I normally see were busy, and the gentleman I explained to me, he took them from me, ran to the woman and said, "She's got Christmas cards for you, but I'm going up to the hospice unit," and off he goes with them and takes them right up. Second, the levy and the condemnation of misdemeanors. Believe me, the hillbilly mixed with the preacher's kid and me wanted to totally, absolutely explode. Because no one should have condemned him like they did. And as I told Mr. Mills all along, I have your back, I know you're doing good, and I will always have your back on this. And thank you all for bringing it up. All I can say is the people who did the most grumbling and lying on there were the same people that we've been dealing with in this school district for years. I can remember when Jim Leftley was head of the levy committee. And they would even get Jim, but Jim's too much like me and he told them what they could do, so. And, you know, so, Matt,
Thank you.
gotcha. Now, here's what I want you all to do. 1 minute, this is quick. I want you to take what they said and what the truth is, like we came out and talked about tonight. I want you to put it together and say, this is the truth, this is the lie, before it goes on the ballot, and have it published in the newspaper. So you can show those people.
Thank you, Mrs. Fugate.
You're welcome. See, I stayed nice.
Hi, I'm April Zimmerman. I have 5 kids in the district. I'm a substitute teacher, and I love our school district. I just had a few things because I was here to support LifeWise, so I wanted to interject my other thoughts. And it'll be real quick because it's past my bedtime. I know Northwestern raised their sub pay to $153. I know we can't do that, and I don't expect us to. I sub because I love this district. I sub because I want to be more involved in what my kids are doing, and I use it to supplement my pay because I'm a low income wage earner. So if I'm bringing home, we make $100 a day. And after taxes, it's 83 or 84, something around there. I would like to at least bring home $100 a day, subbing. I've got 3 degrees, and I'm working on my 4th. So I could be doing other things and making more money than doing this, but I'm doing it because I'm here. I want to be here. And I don't want to go to Northwestern. I could go 10 minutes down the road and make $153 a day, but I'm choosing to stay here. But I feel like if you don't, just raise it up just a little bit, I think our school district might suffer with the subs, and I know you got a few people coming in for a good response the last time, but I just hope that maybe they all feel the same way as I do, but I think bringing up just maybe 20, whatever, it would be to bring home $100 a day would help the subs out. So that's that covered. I don't know if this is obsolete or not, but in July, I was kind of reviewing your notes. I saw home internet covered. I don't know if it's still covered or not. There was like 48 staff members that were covered for home internet. And I think that was put in place because of COVID and everybody was staying at home and needed that home internet to teach. And if that's the case, I feel like that's obsolete and a waste of our tax dollars.
Hold on just a second, Mrs. Crew is whispering to me, go ahead.
Yeah, I beg your pardon. If it were last month, I believe you were talking about the cell phone.
Yeah.
Was that on last month's?
I think it was July, so it could be obsolete. It was about 48 teachers that were getting home internet paid for. But it could be obsolete, I just wanted to bring it to your
We haven't done that
attention.
since 2020. just
Oh, okay,
FYI.
all right, that's
Actually,
that's
never
obsolete.
did. We did
Yeah. And then,
Okay.
I don't know if I'm running out of time, I'll do it real quick.
2 minutes.
The pay to play, oh, I got 2 minutes?
Yep.
Pay to play, I have 5 kids, I'm a single mom, and I've had $1,000 extra, pay to play bills before. Now, part of that was a broken computer. But I would like it all to be combined for us people that are struggling financially, because I know there was one family that had 8 or 10 kids, and they could have been football players, they could have been out there on the field and helping our school out, but they couldn't afford it. And I think if you would combine the music program, everything should be all-inclusive for not just divided music, divided if they're doing a musical, they shouldn't have to, but right now it's separate. And if you're in musical, the cap out doesn't quite cap out unless you're all in sports or a musical type arts.
So I would like that all to be combined, so people like me could afford to put all my kids in all the sports or that they want to play in, or be a Muse Machine and ROTC and musical, which one kid decides to do them all. So I think that's it. Oh, one more thing, if I have quite time. I know this might sound a little bit negative. I am making 30 to 40,000, let's say, and my neighbor's making 200,000. They have 100,000 each. All my neighbors on my street, I live on Kendig, they make about they have a husband, wife, dual income, making about 100K each. So I'm paying the same taxes as they would, and I do love our school, and I just want justice. Like a $40,000 earner shouldn't be paying the same thing as a $200,000 earner. Our median income here in Tecumseh is 65 to 67K. That means half of our income earners are making over $67,000. We could take an income tax, and that would alleviate some of the burden on people. And I just want to put that as an option in there. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, how are
I
you?
actually already gave you my paper. I misunderstood that we had to fill out the cards and all the things. And
No
I'm
worries.
Jessica Freeman. Obviously my first time speaking, so I didn't know how to do it. And I'm a teacher here in the district. And so I came with a couple of different things that I wanted to touch base on. And I know I will try and keep the first one really brief here. The first one, well, thank you for letting me speak. So the first thing I want to touch on is the LifeWise, and I know that the RTRI may end up being like not even something that we can talk about because it's in legislature. And I know that most people in this program and that we're here supporting it mean well. They do some good things. And it's not that I am against Christianity, I'm against religious instruction. It is that I have a lot of issue with LifeWise itself. And I grew up in the church every single Sunday. I attended in the late 90s one of these programs. And I would not recommend it to anyone. Because I had friends that no longer became my friends because they didn't go to the program. They weren't part of the program. And they were snubbed and looked down on and bullied and harassed for not going and not being part of the program. And that is problematic to me. Something, I'm not going to reiterate all the points that were brought up, but something that was not brought up is what this will cost the district. No, we don't pay for the busing, we don't pay for the teachers there or whatever, but based on the Ohio's average cost per student, I didn't have the data for us specifically. If you break it down by 50 minutes a week for once a week, per student, it's about $403 annually per student that is unused funds, meaning that it is money that has been allocated for educational purposes in the district that will not be used for that purpose because they'll be elsewhere. And so for just 100 kids, that's $40,000 of misused funds. And I know that money is tight, and so that's something to consider. Also, I have just a personal plea that I am terrified for my students. I fear for especially my LGBTQ plus students who might hear that their identity is a sin. I fear for the students of other religions or no religion at all who may feel alienated and judged, and I fear for the students who might be bullied or ostracized because of the divisive environment this program could create. And I fear that the loss of the inclusive, supportive environment we've worked so hard to foster could be detrimental. They are very anti-anything other than white, Christian, straight. And that's from their website, and you could find those documents. And I'd be happy to share them with anyone. The second thing I would like to talk to on is that Article I, and I thank you for pausing to take some time to reflect and hopefully involve us in this consideration. But I'm here to express some deep concern about that and allowing our staff members, because as a teacher, I believe my primary responsibility is to educate and support my students and not to bear the responsibility of carrying or using a weapon. I personally do not feel safe with guns in the building, and I'm appalled that we, the teachers, the very people who will be most affected by this, were not given a chance to have a voice. I want to be clear, I know that we have security. I want to bring that, we have trained professionals. We have our school resource officers. They are experts in law enforcement, crisis management, the responsible use of firearms. But even with extensive training, I did some research here. Hitting a target in a crisis is extraordinarily difficult, and according to the LAPD data, officers landed only 33% of their shots between 2014 and 2018. And if a trained professional in the LAPD can miss nearly 70% of the time, how can we expect teachers and staff members to be accurate in the chaos of a crisis? In addition to the risks, the program is costly. That was spoken on, it's $650 per person with an annual refresher of $200,000. With across the, I included the preschool, so across 6 buildings would be about $4,000 nearly a year, or for the initial $1,200 ongoing. I would like to see those funds being used and invested proactively into safety measures such as increasing mental health support, hiring additional counselors, expanding the roles of our SROs. Even more concerning is the content of this training. Despite the gravity of the policy, the required program allocates only 30 minutes to mitigation, de-escalation, and crisis intervention. Again, I found that on the Ohio website. These are the skills that are critical to preventing these situations. I would like to see the funds being allocated instead of there investing in mental health resources, mental and behavioral health therapists, programs, and things of the like. And we're probably running out of time here. All right, so
I appreciate your
there
comment.
we are.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
I didn't get my card already. My name is Christy Talley. I am a counselor here at Tecumseh. I've been in this district for 25 years. I am just up here about the levy. There's been a lot of other stuff that happened. It took me 2.5 hours to hear anything mentioned about the levy, so I appreciate it finally came up. But on November 6th, when that levy failed, we had a lot of students and staff very concerned about that levy failing. And we have not heard anything about that levy until tonight at 8:30. And that's concerning because we have a lot of young staff that see our district in crisis with absolutely nothing that's been said about the renewal and that its failure. That's a big deal. Those people are going to start looking elsewhere for employment, places that are a little bit more stable. And that concerns me because, again, I've been here for 25 years, and before we hit that financial cliff that we've been talking about for years, I'm going to be retired. This is not going to affect me, besides that my retirement for the rest of my life has been affected. But the students that I care deeply about and my colleagues are going to be affected. And we have said nothing about this levy that failed. And that's concerning because we have rumors. I've heard that we're cutting 30 positions and cutting sports. Again, I don't know if that is true or not because we have not addressed anything about the levy. And I realize that this was your first meeting since the levy, but any sort of communication between November 6th and November 19th would have gone a long way to alleviate some concerns of what's going on in this district.
Mrs. Talley, I will own that one. Please no, I will own that because we have not met and we have not had a conversation. Mrs. Crew can't send anything out until we direct her to do that when it's related to the levy.
And I understand that, but that maybe, I read things in the newspaper from all sorts of superintendents across this whole entire Miami Valley about levies that failed or didn't fail. And they didn't have board meetings between November 5th and November 6th, but they had a planned statement. And that just shows foresight about things.
Okay, again, I will own that.
And I appreciate that.
As president, I did not make that happen.
But we have a lot of very concerned staff members that are updating their resume. And you thought we had a turnover this year. If we don't address and do something, we will have even more next year.
Thank you.
Can I ask that somebody from TEA represents at a levy meeting? We had very. You have been there.
But I was gonna say, I've
Okay,
been at.
okay, there have been
one.
very few, am I right?
Well, okay.
Very few.
Nope, we're not gonna go back and forth. I'm sorry. We're not gonna go back and forth. We have lessons that we have learned from this process, and we will be better going forward. We are all in this together to make our district thrive.
Amen.
So that's where I am.
Amen.
I will own, okay, I will
I
own
appreciate that.
that we should have had a statement. I will direct Mrs. Crew on a statement that we can do. Now that we have met, we will have something out by the end of the week. I am very sorry that people feel threatened. As a reminder, nothing has come out, so there are no rumors or rumors. We will get through this together. We are all on the same team trying for the same thing. Thank you. Anybody else? Yep, come on in.
Just briefly, I want to say thank you, Ms. Martin, for clarifying the email and recension that, the word that it had been rescinded at the start of the meeting. So I want to thank you for the accountability and ownership of that, so thank you for that. And again, thank you for the opportunity for speaking. A lot of questions did come up, and I just wanted to offer myself to any one of you who would like those questions that came up to be answered. I will be able to speak on those, and I will share you both sides. And I want to also thank you for suspending the policy until more information comes out from the state. I think that that is a wise decision with that policy being on the floor right now. And but in the event that it becomes a shall state, I'm more than happy to give you all the information that is needed for you to make the decision. Or even if it stays a may state, I would like to offer you my time to answer those questions and bring up the cases that were brought up and discussed and how we're going to avoid those problems in our district.
What we would do, Mrs. Mann, is we would act as one body and get you a bunch of questions or any questions that come up rather than firing them at you all individually. So be on the lookout for that as we go forward, and we'll probably go ahead and work through Mrs. Crew on that. I know that you've been in touch with her and you guys have had that relationship.
And thank you so much. I just want to say I'm a strong supporter of the district. I'm a part of the PTO, and I absolutely love our kids, love the veterans programs, and it was an amazing job. So
Wonderful.
Thank you for your
Thank
service.
you. All right. Come on over.
I just want to clarify real quick, so that it's not going back and forth. So I have been to levy meetings. I missed one for a child, and I will always put my kids first. But I will also say, I have been coming to the levy meetings since, I don't know, I mean, I was here when Brad was on the levy committee, and Dr. Gay, and I've been a part of it. But not asking teachers to come is one thing. We don't have community members showing up at levy committee meetings either.
All true.
You know, like, and I did reach out to Mr. Mills, and asked if I would like to get the levy committee meeting back together, because he also shared concerns like about, we don't have a ton of teachers, and we do have a large population of teachers that teach in the district and live in the district. But when I even asked at a levy committee meeting before we tabled it, who here does not benefit from the district, like financially? And there was 2 people here. The people that show up for the levy committee meetings are on Tecumseh Local's payroll. So we have to do a better job of getting the community, which does include our teachers. But until we get actual community members in here, the teachers aren't gonna help sink or, I mean, Kevin Becker did a phenomenal job, and Rennick Brown, of tanking that at the very end. I mean, they were the squeaky wheel that got the grease. I mean,
So I'm gonna pause you.
so.
We do have lessons learned. We do have things we need to do. We are reconvening on the 5th to decide what we're gonna do for a levy for the spring.
And I would like to see the levy committee, and I asked Mr. Mills this, if we could get together sooner than later, because we haven't, so that it's all still fresh.
Yep.
Like, what went well, what didn't go well, like Melissa
Do a
and
debrief.
I's campaign was
We tried to do
packed,
the
but we
I
also.
appreciate that, yeah.
online thing.
Thank you, I just wanted to clarify.
Yes,
If
Mr.
I can
Mills.
respond.
Thank you.
That's a great idea, Terry, we spoke about that. I want to have it sooner than later. I think that we just, as a board, need to figure out what our next steps
Yep.
are. We have a work session
And
on
then
the
go.
5th, After we have that work session, we're going.
Yep.
So, and then in terms of community engagement, I am open to any and all suggestions on how to increase that, because goodness, we tried. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, everybody, deep breath. Tonight's been a lot. And board members, aren't you lucky? We have a need for executive session. Board members, we are going to go into executive session for the following reasons, please. Consider discipline of a public employee or official. Consider compensation of a public employee or official. Hold on, I'm not done. Consider matters required to be kept confidential by federal law or regulations or state statutes, and discuss details relative to security arrangements and emergency response protocols for the Board of Education. I need a motion in a second, please.
So moved.
Mr. Mills?
Second.
And Mr. Diller. Thank you all. Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Yes.